So I played the beta of the first Descendant, and it's bad. It's really bad, but let's talk about it. I'm gonna try and keep this whole video as short as possible since there's really not that much to talk about here. Before coming into the game, I saw that there is an actual content creator program, and if you join it, you get a Game Press kit, and I guess it unlocks a ton of things that are locked for the normal person. And even though I fully support that, and I believe that more companies should do that, I honestly didn't want to apply to the content creator program because of two simple reasons. The first reason would be that I wanted to experience the game from a perspective of a normal player, and I didn't want to take any shortcuts or have any kind of a different gameplay experience than a normal player would. The second reason would be that I was always honest with my videos and reviews, and all my videos were basically no BS videos. And if I didn't like the game, I didn't want to be made to filter my opinion. And honestly, if they accepted me to their content creator program, they would boot me out after this video. So let me tell you about all the good and all the bad with this game. The first Descendant looked and sounded very promising. The first time I heard about the game was when a subscriber asked me to react to one of the promo videos. So I did, and you can see my reaction on the second channel. I was a bit skeptical about it because the video didn't really show any gameplay, and as per usual, I had all the right to be skeptical, because the game is basically a joke. The moment you hop into the universe of the first Descendant, you immediately realize that it's very inspired by Destiny 2 and Warframe, and Destiny 2 is a game that I basically just started playing, and even though I love the gameplay mechanics, I simply hate the predatory monetization tactics that it has. And you can see my full review by clicking here. So even though I was skeptical about the first Descendant, a part of me was very excited to see what new can it bring to the table, especially considering that it's made in Unreal 5. I mean, who doesn't want a great-looking third-person looter-shooter MMO? But unfortunately, good-looking is the only thing that we got. It's great-looking for sure, but it's just a terrible game overall. And yes, I know that this is an open beta version of the game that I'm playing, but you need to realize that beta is a phase in software development that is in between the alpha phase and the release candidate phase. So it's an almost finished product with all its core elements being implemented and working as intended. But if this is what they intended, we have a huge problem. Although the game looks gorgeous, the gameplay is in its pre-alpha stage if you ask me. It's just a bad experience. Even the running is clunky with some characters, and it just looks bad, especially in the safe zone when you don't have your weapons equipped, and your character is unable to do two things simultaneously, like the fact that you can't sprint and reload at the same time, or the fact that you need to come to a full stop and not touch any buttons for at least a second to be able to pick stuff off the fucking floor. And it's the same if you want to interact with the world. Jumping and vaulting is also very janky. Even though there are vaulting mechanics, it's always a question if they will work or not. Then you have the grapple mechanics, and even though it's a good idea, it just ends up adding to the overall clunkiness and just makes it even worse. The abilities that you have are very underwhelming, and they're also very clunky. I mean, it's basically just a pattern at this point. Sometimes if you leap into the air to slam onto the enemy and you manage to land on their heads, you will get suspended in mid-air until the game figures out what to do with you. The abilities are also not as effective as you would expect, especially at the start. You deal little to no damage to the enemies with your AoE abilities. And the worst part is that all of your AoE abilities have a really small radius of effect, so you will need to get close to the enemy, but then you have no melee weapons. All of the weapons in the game are ranged. Now, since the first Descendant was advertised to be the Destiny 2 killer, let's compare them. So this is AoE and melee fighting in Destiny 2. And here are the same things, but in the first Descendant. What the fuck is this game? It's basically the same, right? Now you can say that the first Descendant is not Destiny 2, and that it shouldn't be played the same way, and that will be a fair point until you realize that you can equip a sword to your character, but you can swing it only once, and then it will go onto a cooldown. But sure, let's say, for the sake of the argument, that this is a game that is supposed to be played at range with weapons that are provided to you. But if you thought that melee sucked, the gunplay is the king of Suck Balls Mountain.
If I suck balls, you are king of Suck Balls Mountain!
Shut the fuck up.
There is almost no recoil to the weapons. Instead, the weapons seem to vibrate. And you can say that good gunplay is really hard to make in a third-person shooter, but you will be wrong. If you ever played The Last of Us, Uncharted 4, or even The Division 2, you would know how wrong you are. The only gun that has actual recoil is a laser/plasma gun. And if you think about it, it really shouldn't have any recoil to it. Now, if you combine the bad gunplay with the terrible AI coding and the worst NPC movement mechanics seen in gaming in the past 10 years, you get a disaster that is called the first Descendant. Honestly, the AI is brain dead. Most of them will just walk towards you in a very slow and non-menacing manner, while some of them will just run at you, but with every shot that you land on them, they will get stunned. So if you have a machine gun, they will just stop in their tracks and have a seizure until they die. Honestly, it feels like the AI and the NPC movement mechanics were done by the same guy that made the original Doom game, but he spent the last 30 years in jail without even seeing a fucking computer for the whole duration of his sentence. They are that terrible. You have to try the game to understand what I'm saying. I was finishing missions without any issues, even though I was typing in the in-game chat for the most part. And when you use the chat, the game locks you out from doing anything for 5 seconds straight. What a fucking bullshit mechanic, but even with that, the game wasn't challenging at all. For the most part, you will simply stay away from the enemy and shoot them while they slowly walk towards you. It's just stupid and not engaging at all. But if you thought that the NPC behavior and the movement mechanics were bad, they added one more thing to this whole disaster. The enemies tend to have weapons that will freeze you, and for some reason those weapons can shoot through your shields. And each time you get frozen, you get locked out of the game for a couple of seconds. So sometimes you'll get a couple of these enemies that will freeze you over and over again, and the only thing that you can do is to kill them before they get you killed or before you die of boredom. So basically, on top of all of the clunk, you get NPCs with CC abilities. You can call it stun locking, I call it CC, and CC stands for crowd control. But the worst part is that even though there is not that much variety when it comes to the enemies, there are some that are set to explode right next to you, but they make no sound. So if they're coming up from behind you, you will have no idea what just happened, and you will have no time to react to them, which only gets worse if you need to defend a point from getting damaged by the enemy, because there are some missions where you need to do that, because they will just sneak up to the point and detonate. On top of all of that, the game doesn't seem to care if you're doing a mission alone or if there's 5 more players with you. It just spawns the same amount of mobs every time, without taking the player count into consideration at all, which in the end makes for a terrible experience. So what you're seeing right now on the screen is the most engaging gameplay that I had in this game, and it was still trash. But even the mob spawning is janky. Sometimes you will be standing there for a good minute, waiting on the next wave of badly coded mobs to slowly walk at you. But if you thought that that was bad, the worst part is that all the mobs should drop ammo and health packs for you to pick them up. But sometimes, since the game doesn't care how many players are doing the mission, it just doesn't spawn enough. So I had a mission that left me with no ammo on any of my guns, and a boss that it couldn't kill because I had no ammo. And by now you probably realized that I didn't even talk about the story at all. That's because there's nothing to talk about. It's a classic story of good versus evil, with a small twist that is completely destroyed by the game mechanics. So basically there is this artifact called the Iron Heart that was made by some guys a long time ago, it doesn't really matter, and the evil guys want it so they can destroy the universe or whatever. And at the very beginning of the game they steal it from you, so you have to retrieve it. But since you touched it, it speaks to you, and you're having these visions of a beautiful woman that is talking to you and telling you that the Iron Heart needs to be destroyed, because nobody should be allowed to wield its power. So you're working for the good guys trying to retrieve the Iron Heart, but you're also working for this woman that wants you to destroy it. So far so good, right? But the issue is that you're not playing as a single character, because there is no character creation. You can choose between 3 base characters, and then over the course of however long you have the patience to play this piece of shit game, You will play as the characters that you have unlocked. So basically there's a few issues with this whole thing. Every NPC in most of the MMORPG games will talk to you like you're the only hero that they've met in their life. They will all praise you because you're so awesome, which is supposed to make you feel special. Yet you know that everyone that ever talked to those NPCs had the same dialogue. But honestly, that never bothered me. It's just poor writing is what it is. But what bothers me in this game, and where it gets even weirder, is that you're not supposed to play it with a single character. You're supposed to unlock stronger, better, or different characters along the way and play as them. And none of them touched the Ironheart. None of them talked to any of the NPCs. Yet you progress through the story like nothing fucking happened. Like you didn't switch characters at all. So to put this in simple terms, I was playing as a big old bearded guy, and I know that he had a gray beard because the beard was fucking sticking out of his mask for some reason. And the next character I unlocked and played as was a character that I can only describe as an underage girl with big boobs and an even bigger ass. And no, that's not me being a pedo at all. That's just me pointing out how bad this whole game is. But you want to see the other characters? Let's take a break and take a look at what the other characters look like. Starting off strong with a simply electrifying underage girl with a huge ass and a set of bunny ears. Up next we have the old guy with a dumb looking minotaur helmet that never actually uses the gun that he's wielding in the character menu. Then we have the stereotypic Caucasian male from manga cartoons. Next we have tits, I mean breasts, I mean Vanessa. She didn't get cast for Frozen, so now she's freezing enemies in this shitty game. Then we have the failed K-pop star that just didn't have that perfect DNA to make it on the harsh market of K-pop. Then we have Boobs, the girl that spreads chlamydia and other STDs or venom or whatever. Then we have that friendly teacher that we all know from that one Japanese porn that we saw. And I'm gonna stop here just to be polite, but before we end, here's another girl that is overly sexualized even though she looks like she's underage. So it's obvious that the game is made in Japan, right? So all in all, I wouldn't say that the main story is terrible, but it's not good either. And the fact that you can change characters and continue with the story like nothing happened doesn't make any sense to me and makes the things even worse. So with all this said, I have no idea if this game is supposed to be a free-to-play game with the cosmetics being monetized, or is it going to be a one-time payment, or if it's gonna go down the Destiny 2's route with its predatory marketing tactics and monetizing every single bit of the game. But to be honest, even if this game was free-to-play and had a good monetization tactic with no pay-to-win, pay-to-progress, or pay-to-play elements to it, and if it only monetized the skins and emotes, I still wouldn't recommend it to anyone. It is just a waste of time. Destiny's free-to-play period will give you more content than this game has. And with the gameplay mechanics being better and much more polished, you will simply have more fun in Destiny 2 than in the first Descendant. So what I'm saying is that it's in no way a Destiny 2 killer. But I need to give credit where credit is due. And I gotta say that the graphics are really amazing. But that's the only part of this game that is actually good. I didn't even talk about the sound design and the music because I'm a musician, a composer, a sound designer, and a sound engineer by trade, so I would rip them a new one if I started talking about it. And look, the gun sounds being glitchy could be an issue with the game engine. I haven't worked with Unreal 5, so I can't tell you why the sound is this bad, but I can hear that a lot of effort got put into the sound design itself, and that they took a very realistic approach when it comes to the gun sounds and the sound of your armor clanking while you're running. But I can tell you from a sound engineer's perspective that there's a reason why Destiny 2 and similar games don't allow those realistic gun sounds. It's because there's a lot of things happening on the screen at the same time and you need to be able to hear most of it. And if all of that sounds realistic, it all starts falling apart like it does in The Last Descendant. So basically the reason why the guns and sound effects in Destiny 2 are so bass heavy is to let the mid-range of the frequency spectrum breathe so you can still hear the dialogue if there is one. So in the end, I really have no idea what Nexon thought with releasing this to the public. I didn't play the first open beta from a year ago, but I heard that it was even worse than this. And I fully support the developers that are releasing betas that are open to the public, so the players can test it out and give the devs some input. And sometimes it can build a hype around the game if the game is good, like it did with Payday 3, but this game just isn't good. It could be good if all the things that I've said in this video got fixed and they added some fun melee mechanics mechanics and abilities that would actually make you feel like a real hero. But unfortunately, I don't think that will happen, because that will mean that they will need to go back to the alpha stage of the game, or in other words, they will need to go back to the drawing board. And I didn't even mention all the skipped frames and stuttering that I had while testing the game out. And I'm playing on a water-cooled 4090 and a water-cooled 7090-50X with 128 gigabytes of DDR5, and the game is installed on an M.2 drive. So it's not my PC's fault. They either need to optimize the game a bit better, or it could be an issue with the servers. I have no idea. But in the end, all that I can say is this: I'm hoping that they will see this video and understand that I'm not trying to be malicious. But the thumbnail needed to be clickbaity. And yes, I was a bit like frustrated with some elements, but like, come on, it's because some things are just basic and like the game is just bad. And I'm hoping that they will take all of this input into consideration and that they will go back to the drawing board, because the game surely has a lot of potential, but unfortunately that potential is completely untapped. But if they release the game in this state, that will only mean that they want to be one of the first studios that released the game in Unreal Engine 5, because it seems that most of the studios are currently racing on who's gonna be the first to release a beautiful looking UE5 game. So since this whole video was a review, I can give them a score of 3 out of 10 grumplings, and that's the best that I can do. So that is it for today, guys. If you like the video, like and subscribe and share to your friends and all of that. I gotta thank my patrons for supporting me and for supporting this channel. You guys are awesome. If you want to become a patron or the channel member on YouTube, there are links in the info down below. You know how YouTube works, like you're gonna find your way around. But yeah, so that's it for today, guys. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to bring a towel when you're traveling through space. Bye. What the actual fuck was this? Come on.